that aspect of being a mentor for him, you know, like helping him and pushing him along when he, you know, he thought, oh,
he's a little stuck.
I didn't make the position that I wanted, and these
people, okay, cool, let's
these people are frustrating me, and you gave him a new goal. You said, then you're going to get snare the next year. And you just, and he did it. He worked, you know, he worked and worked.
Right, and hopefully that taught him, like, you know, it's like, you know, if something doesn't go your way, pivot. Like, find another way to go about it, and look at it in a positive way. And
that's an important life skill.
And it happened.
It's not about, you know, reaching the top however you can get it. And I don't even like it when students win their first piano competition. I tell them that. It takes the pressure off, but I tell them, like, I hope you don't win the first time, because, you know, you really need to feel like you've worked to it.
What's up, everybody? It's Carl, aka Carl Drum Tech. I have a very special guest here today. This is Noreen Wenjen. She is a piano teacher, and tell the audience briefly a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a nationally certified piano teacher, and I'm the immediate past president for the California Association of Professional Music Teachers. And I recently authored a book called To Your Waitlist, an entrepreneurial guide for music teachers.
Awesome. And tell the audience how we know each other, because you're a piano teacher, I'm a drummer, right?
We were so fortunate to find you. It was the best referral that we've had. My son is a percussionist in the local West High School, and he needed some extra help for this skill and technique. And it's been so fabulous having you as his instructor, not only for the technical aspect of drumming and playing percussion in marching band, but you have been such a great moral support for him, and also a guidance for him in navigating through high school.
Great, that's good. And that's a huge part of my YouTube channels, is like, it's not just about the teaching drums, it's also like, you know, life skills and how to cope with certain situations. And I think this video could be really helpful to my viewers. Piano is percussion, right? And I feel like, you know, this video and speaking to you could really benefit my audience, because, you know, like, as a music teacher, like, there's a lot of students who don't know what to do with their careers, and, you know, as far as like they're learning music and it's like, okay, we don't know what the end game is, like we don't know like where to go next. And music education is something huge that you can get into. So can you tell a little bit about my audience, you know, in terms of like about your career, you know, how you started, you know, just a little bit about like, you know, how you became who you are?
Sure, I'd love to share that with you. I used to call myself the accidental piano teacher. It's the name of the blog that I had, because even though I performed competitively since I was about 5 years old, all the way through age 28, I tried always to not become a music teacher or a musician, because I was told time after time that it was not very practical, that I would have a difficult life, that you know, creatives are, you know, have a difficult time being employed. And I'm going on my 27th year as a professional music teacher, and I've never been laid off. I'm happy to say I've been self-employed.
You're giving yourself raises.
I make my own hours. It has been an unexpectedly blessed and beautiful career.
Right.
And in raising a family, and even before that, and when I first started. So it's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of work, but the fun is in growing and having control over your own career, and being able to expand in different directions and make it exciting, and grow the areas that you love in the area that you love for music.
Right.
And I really do feel like anybody could be successful in it, and we shouldn't shy away from creative arts. And it's just a matter of trusting yourself in working hard, going after what you love. And but I encourage anybody who loves music, who's going to study music, whether it's in performance or music education, to set your sights on doing what you enjoy, because it's something you can do for the rest of your life.
Right. So how would you advise our audience, you know, who are percussionists, who are maybe other instrumentalists, maybe they're just starting out in their music teaching career, maybe they're coaching some high schools, maybe taking on a few, you know, a private lesson here, a private student here and there. How would you advise them on, you know, how to start a music studio the way that you've done it?
I think that one of the most important things is in connections, in connecting with your own mentor, whether it is your percussion teacher or someone that you admire, someone that already has a successful studio. Finding someone to help bounce ideas off and to help guide you throughout this path is going to be a really important part in reaching out into the community. The other thing that's really important that people don't really think of is volunteering. I made it to the become president for the California Association of Professional Music Teachers really due to extensive volunteering.
Okay, right.
Whenever I was curious about an event or a job or what to do, I would just volunteer and say, I'll run it,
Right.
I'll figure it out, I'll do it. So then after so many years, you're familiar with all these events. You have all these opportunities for your students because you know how to run the event, you know what it requires, and then sooner or later, you kind of will raise in the ranks of leadership out of sheer volunteering. Now, it's unpaid, but it's part of your education process, and I just think it's so important, and it's a way to give back to an area that you love for music.
Yeah, and it's interesting because anytime I have people on my follower list asking me like, hey, I want to get into teaching, I don't know how, I don't have any connections. I always just tell them like, go to the local high schools, volunteer your time like for free, don't expect any money, and just be of service, give value, right? And then in turn, like, because that's how I started. Like I said, I wanted to volunteer, I just wanted to help out, and then at some point that turned into a paid gig, right?
Yes, exactly. And go engage with your local community. So whether it's going into music stores or even at my kids' elementary schools, I used to always offer to come in if they needed an accompanist for these little plays that they had, that they had a little singing. I would come in and accompany for them. I would always come in and actually do a little free session on music history.
Okay.
And I tried to make it fun for the kids. I would teach them about different periods of history, and we'd do little games, and the kids, some of them had never had music lessons, and some were actually inspired to get music lessons afterwards. They were
Right.
interested in learning about Bach and Beethoven based on our just games that we had.
Right, and in business talk, that turned into conversions,
That's
basically.
right.
Good,
right.
good. So just educating you guys out there on that. And then you talked about like, just going around and volunteering, getting your face out there, right? That's what we call marketing, right? Basically, it's like, getting your name out there, getting your face out there, getting people to know you. Just have yourself be top of mind of people, because if you're out of sight, you're out of mind, right? So can you advise our audience on like, who want to get into teaching? They don't necessarily know anything about marketing, business, which you have a background in. You have a background in marketing, you could talk about as well. How would you advise, individuals who have no experience in that area at all, like in terms of like building your business?
So I actually always thought I was going to go into marketing and advertising. I love graphic design. I work for 2 Fortune 500 companies, Nissen Foods and Aquint, and I just really love the whole aspect of business. It's just very fun and exciting to me to watch things grow. And again, it's sort of a creative thing. And marketing is really just figuring out a way to get out there what you can offer, whether it's a product or a service. And again, it's a matter of connecting with people. So for me, the first thing I did before the marketing is I set goals. Even from the very first lesson that I took, I had that I taught, I actually set out, I got myself a journal, and I wrote out all my expenses, how much I would need to earn in order to cover all my expenses monthly, how many students I would need to charge at a proposed rate. And then I from the very beginning, would calculate how much each lesson was and what I would need to do to complete that goal. And I really faithfully kept that journal for many years until I completed my goals, and I still believe in really writing things down. But also, in order to give myself some financial security while I was starting up my business, I actually worked for my sister's temp agency, Aquint, and I was sent out to work on whatever jobs were available. I made myself very flexible, but I would say I'm available Thursdays and Fridays to do temp work if I had filled Monday through Thursday teaching. But when I was first starting, I might have only had like 5 students. I put them all on one day. I temped 4 days. I could cover all my expenses. And then as my teaching load increased, days, I decreased the amount of days that I was willing to do temporary work that was not in, that was not in music. And eventually I was able to just teach full time.
So the income was always this, like stable, but then you kind of changed, your career based on, how many more students you got. Right.
I don't like unpredictability. I'm a Capricorn.
Okay.
I believe in the slow and steady climb. And so I think for most musicians, we want to have stability, and it's a career where we think, gosh, would it be so much easier to become like an accountant or do something like that? But it's not worth giving up something you love. You have to, in every career you take. My brother was an engineer, and still, you get layoffs and different things. And I think that you always have to put yourself out there. You always have a little bit of risk involved, and you just always have to have a plan B. And your plan B can always still be in music.
So how would you advise music teachers, private lesson instructors, to price their lessons? I know that you go by like a national rubric or like a guideline. For percussionists, I feel like the pricing of in our market is like probably a little bit on the low end. Like you always have people who march somewhere and it's like, let's get into teaching, and maybe the quickest way to get some students is to price it really low. Because I've heard of instructors charging like $20 an hour or something like that. But I know that's probably way lower than the average. So how would you advise, number one, how would you advise instructors to price their lessons? And then two, like maybe for percussionists too, who are in a market where it seems like, we underprice our lessons and, it doesn't seem like it's as valued as, like, let's say, piano lessons. Or,
So that's a tricky question, but I think it's a question that all music instructors have, especially when they're starting out, is where do I start and how do I price the lessons? And the thing that I've found is that you really shouldn't ever price based on being the lowest, because there's always someone who's willing to charge less. And that's not necessarily going to grow your business. So I think that everyone needs to do research of the region they live in, the city they live in, because the cost of living is very different in every state. And for example, in the South Bay in California, there's such the cost of living is so high, but also we're a little more accustomed to paying a little more for lessons and for different activities in the South Bay, just because the price values are a little higher. So when I first started, I started out as an assistant teacher to my teacher Joanna Hodges, who's a very famous concert pianist, and she dictated what I would have for the starting cost, because she wanted me to charge 50% of what she was charging. It was a brand new student. She was internationally known concert pianist. Now, her prices were a little low in comparison to her peers who I would say teaching in colleges, and that had for example, she had 6 assistant teachers under her at one point, and she had students who drove 3 hours each way for lessons. So I would say she had quite a huge demand. When I moved back to California and started my own studio, I really thought about where to price it. I was living in LA near the Beverly Center, which is also quite an expensive area, and I was living in an apartment, so I didn't have my full studio with my with 2 Steinways, and I was teaching on an upright that my husband had bought for me for a Valentine's present for $200 that I kept for many years as an accompaniment instrument. Yet I was able to up my price from what I was charging in the state of Washington, and I don't think that you can always price yourself based on others.
Okay.
And what's interesting is it's different in music than it is in business. And for a lot of people, like say, I'm not talking about entrepreneurs. I'm talking about when you start a job, and say a lot of kids don't stay in jobs for 20 years anymore. But you get seniority, then you would get a raise every year, and then your pricing goes up. For musicians, it's not always. You can't just be based on your year's experience. For example, just because you have less experience than maybe someone teaching 25 years, if you do have a lot of people wanting to get in to your program and you've proven in some way, shape, or form that you are providing great musical instruction that everybody wants, and then you can start charging, you can charge more.
Right.
And so you can also escalate your rates based on demand.
Right.
So it's really more of what the market, what the market bears, how the market bears, where you live, and what your own demand is.
Right.
So
for you, like your demand is really high because you have a 2-year
wait list,
and that's the name of your book. Hey.
That's right. So that has helped in that if I'm always able to fill my studio at the pricing, then it's still affordable for the right market, for the right type of student, for the serious student who's looking at its benefits as long-term benefits. They're planning to study. I'm really fortunate because most of my students study between 10 and 14 years, and I'm with them. I'm raising them. I'm like almost a co-parent in a way, and they are teaching me along the way for all those years. We grow up together, is what I would say. And so my studio has become sort of a family. But the way I've been able, what I provide that I think is different, and I think this is also really important, to make yourself stand out from other teachers, you need to provide something that's different, that's exceptional, that's a draw, and it's not just because you live closest to these people down the street. So for me, I'm one of the few music teachers who has monthly performance workshops. My students perform somewhere between 10 and maybe 25 times a year, but for sure, even students who are not playing in competitions and are maybe just that are playing in auditions, evaluations, but they are also performing every month with my whole studio. This is another studio community-based activity. So my studio now becomes a family. They want to see each other every week.
Right.
We have a party after everyone. It just becomes a fun get-together, and it takes the pressure off the parents of making the students practice. Instead, they just remind the students, oh, we got a performance workshop in 2 weeks, and I guarantee they go right into that piano.
Right.
And not out of fear, but because they want to do their best for their peers and the parents and whoever. They even have grandparents who come to attend those events. They're special.
Right. And speaking of like pricing and things like that, and I know you talked about in your book as far as like, for example, when you teach like families, like you have some siblings, they all want to take lessons, and there's that there's like a want to kind of price things lower or like discount rates, things like that. For me, there's always that. I just want to help out, right? Like I want to, I want to give as much as I can. Therefore, I price my, I do my pricing low because I just want to help. I just want to give, right? So how do you balance that? Because teaching is a very giving thing, right?
Yes.
You want to you want to give back to the community, give back to the individual as much as you can. How do you balance that need to, also at the same time, well, you got to eat, right?
Exactly. You do have to consider all of those things. And I think that giving scholarships and giving discounts, if you are able to do that, this is where you have to think about. Am I at a point financially for myself in order to be able to provide that is going to actually still enable me to become a music teacher, to keep my career for the longevity? Am I just discounting it away so that I'm going to have to find a second job and actually not become a musician after that? My advice, as much as I would love to give free lessons all day long, and I just love teaching that much.
Sure, right.
But I always give this advice to new teachers. You should treat your students like you do your own children. So for those of us who have our own kids, and for those of us who have siblings, we know that, if, my brother's getting the same allowance and, doing the same job, and yet, getting double that I am, I'm suddenly not so happy about doing that task.
Of course.
Right? So my time is my time. It's not worth less per hour because it's a sibling. Also, it can get a little bit messy when teachers will come to me and they'll say, oh my gosh, well, one person's like, I'm only charging half the amount because they're older students, and then, the newer students are paying more, and I want to somehow like do a raise, but I can't send a letter out to everybody How do I do it? It just gets a little trickier.
Yeah.
It just gets a little trickier later. So I would sort of encourage at some point to level everything up. It just gives you one more thing to not have to worry about. And the thing is, one thing that I learned from my entrepreneurial sister is that when you do raise your rates, and you will need to do it based on cost of living and everybody's expenses will go up. Inflation. It's interesting because when I worked in the business world, you know exactly you get a raise every year. You know exactly how much, and it's all very planned out. But for music teachers, some music teachers will teach 10 years and never ever raise their rates, and so they have to realize that the cost of living has gone up, whether or not they've done that. And it's not all about income. Of course, we all become musicians not for the money.
Correct.
We become musicians because we love it.
Yeah.
It is just in our heart and in our soul. So it is my hope that the reason why I wrote that book is to help musicians, whether they're new or established, to be able to stay in their career of teaching music for the longevity. It's not about making billions of dollars. It's about, being able to make a profitable, in the black living, and doing something that you love, and feeling successul.
Right.
And feeling like your hard work is paying off. Not only can you provide yourself the quality of life that you would like, but also that you're providing this great instruction and spreading your love of music to others.
Right.
There are very few professions and very few activities that people can do for decades. And a good example is I had a piano student for almost 25 years. And he didn't quit, but unfortunately he passed. But I literally gave him his last piano lesson in the hospital bed talking about music. And the only thing he could do after, when he retired, his only interest was playing piano.
Wow.
And he was so devoted, and I saw him through heart surgery and strokes and all these different things. He became a very excellent pianist. We were doing piano concertos together. He performed at every workshop, and in fact he would give music history lessons at the workshop. He would always speak about the composers, and the kids all just adored him. They just all loved him. So we actually have a memorial scholarship in his name for Dr. Don, and we, like I said, we all learn from each other.
Yeah. And
the kids learn what it's like to grow up with a life of music and to be able to do that well into their 80s.
Right. That's awesome. Okay, and then so we've talked a lot about your book. So it's now magically up here. We talked about your book, and why don't we go ahead and tell everybody about it and what people can get out of this book when they get it.
So this book, like I said, was really written for music teachers to be able to expand your studio. But beyond that, it's also making sure that you've crossed off and ticked off all those check marks of sole proprietorship and what it's like to own a small business.
Okay.
So in it, you're going to find like what you need for maybe liability insurance, or do you have a business license, and those types of things. I've tried to include business details and things that people might have not thought of, and things that you should have from the very beginning. Right.
Another interesting thing too is like I found that you even talk about like setting aside some money to invest and like put money away for retirement and things like that, right?
That actually is so important.
Sure.
And I encourage everybody. It never seems like a great time to put away money for retirement.
Yeah.
When you're younger, it just seems like it's so far away. But those things really need time to grow. And as self-employed entities, we sort of get this tax burden that seems like it's very great, and it is. However, some of the benefits that you can take advantage of are the retirement IRAs, whether you can qualify for the Roth IRA or the self-employment SEP IRAs. It's something that I promise that if you start early on and start saving, I don't think anyone is going to regret saving money earlier than they intended. And before you know it, you'll be close to retirement and hopefully still teaching music.
Right, right. I always like to think of investing or like, saving money as like you pay yourself first. So like you set aside like a certain amount of your income and you're paying yourself. That money goes away. You can't spend it, right? And then now, and that money, when you put it in a Roth IRA, right, you're putting it into stocks, and like you said, it takes time for these things to grow. So this money that you put away is going to grow over time. And then by the time you get to a certain age, it's like, oh, this money I put away this much, but it's grown to this much.
Yes, and I highly suggest making that an auto transfer.
Right.
Because then you almost never miss it.
Right.
You kind of just get used to having it.
Same thing like an auto payment, right? Like for your phone or something, right?
That's right. Except this is one you're going to you're going to really appreciate down the line, and it's something that it needs time, decades, to really make a big difference. So that's a great point.
Yeah. So where can they get this book? Amazon?
So the book you can get on Amazon and in Barnes & Noble, and from my publisher, Audrey Press. And I'm having a book signing actually this coming Saturday at Barnes & Noble in Torrance at 11:30 to 1:30. And I have the coolest swag gifts for teachers or students who come and come for the book signing.
Awesome.
So I hope that that you'll really find this book valuable, and it's starting to pop onto some of the lists too for colleges, for music majors and music educators, education majors. There's usually a bit of reading that you need to do, and some of the professors are now putting it on their list.
And I think that's important because, again, I've talked about this before, as musicians, we're not really taught how to be business people, we're not really taught about entrepreneurship. We just think notes, like how to play in time, like, all this stuff, musicianship. We don't necessarily know about Roth IRAs or, so I think this book, bridges that gap to kind of teach us about things that us musicians normally aren't taught, right?
I hope so. I mean, everything from how to choose your location to how to expand. I've really tried to put in a lot of business details, and people have said to me, this is not only for music teachers, it should be for anybody starting a small business.
Right.
So I learned a lot in actually watching my sister start her startup, which is now a Fortune 500 company, because I worked with her, and a lot of the details and things that needed to be done during that startup I helped her with. So everything from accounting on QuickBooks or to how to fill out surveys and how to do mass marketing mailings.
Right.
So times are changing now.
Yeah.
We don't often lick a stamp and send things out.
Yeah.
But I think that what you've done with your business and social media is something that everybody should follow. And you're just so on top of things, and you've been able to grow your social media base, and as well as your private lessons through private and online lessons so rapidly. I mean, it's amazing that you're the one to watch too. I mean, you gotta subscribe to all your channels.
Thank you.
I think you are you're just on the ascent.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And I definitely consider you as one of my mentors as far as building my business and my studio. You've been so successful in doing it, and I just look up to you. And then I love so much that I can pretty much contact you anytime and just kind of ask you for advice.
Well, and what goes around comes around, because you've been such a fabulous mentor for our son Connor, and I can tell at the lessons how much he values your opinion and your input. And when you're a junior,
it's not just about teaching the drums, right?
No, he wants to know your opinion on everything that he does.
Right.
And he loves to share with you what he's inventing, what he's reading, what he's building, the games that he's creating, and you're great in communicating with him. And that perhaps is one of the most valuable parts about taking private lessons, is that you have this extra level of support that's not your parent, and someone who will be such a support and guiding force for you. I mean, when I'm at my piano lessons, I'm talking about everything. I'm helping them prepare for college.
Oh, really? Okay.
I'm writing job recommendations for them when they leave college. I mean, I'm in touch with these kids for life.
Yeah.
And I think that we're blessed to be in a job that we are just always communicating and really growing this family.
Right. I mean, private lesson teaching, it's like, it's definitely like, it's a human connection kind of thing. It's like, we kind of help each other out. We kind of use each other as a soundboard, right? And I think in many ways, like we kind of act like as therapists in a way, right?
Oh,
like,
of course. We give a lot of advice.
Yeah, right.
Yes,
right.
we definitely do. And what's interesting is a lot of what I learned before I had my own children I don't remember, it was like maybe 10 years before, a lot of the things that I learned about teaching other kids and learning from how these kids were so amazing. And I would ask the parents, how is it that your children are so motivated and enthusiastic, and they love music, they love everything they do, they're constant learners. I got as much learning from them from teaching that I was able to utilize in raising my own family as I gave.
Yeah.
So I think that it's always this balance in everything we do of give and take, learning and sharing what we learn.
Absolutely. So, guys, if you want to get a copy of this book, I am going to leave a link for the Amazon, so you can get it on Amazon in the profile description for this video, so you guys can get that right away and soak up all this knowledge.
And I hope you join me at my event. You can find it on Eventbrite under book signing in Torrance, under Wenjen Piano, or To Your Waitlist, and you can find me on toyourwaitlist.com.
Okay, great. So guys, if you like this video, please do me a huge favor, hit that like button. If you have any questions or comments, have any questions for Noreen, leave in the comments below. I'll make sure I relay it to her, and then she will give you an answer. Also, make sure you guys subscribe to this channel so you can get more content like this. And if you feel like this video could help other people out, especially other musicians, other teachers, other business people maybe that you know, make sure you share this video with them, okay? Otherwise, thank you guys so much for watching. Noreen, it's a pleasure.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Much. Absolutely. Thank you for being my video. And I'll see you guys next time, all right? Cool. Awesome. That was great.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That was fun.
That was fun.
Good.
A great interview.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Your energy comes through.
Okay.
You know, always does.